Going live. Oh my goodness. Oh man. I gotta take this phone call. This sucks. Alright. Yeah. I don't know how. Shoot. Well, I'll do it later. Oh, that stinks. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Sorry about that. I was just getting an important phone call, but I guess I will call it back. Sorry we missed you last week, but we are back. And, oh, I got it on the, this is the wrong show. I gotta move you over here. Sorry. Alright. Man, this is really messing with me. Yeah, I know. I want to put you on, exit full screen. I want to put you on the monitor, though, here. There you go. Hello? Hey. You can take the show away, Franz. Hold on a sec. Just give me 1 second. How you doing? I'm doing good. I gotta do. I'm just trying to do something real quick. So just give me 1 second, real quick. Okay, I gotta turn up Franz's microphone. It's not working. So how are you? Oh yeah. How how is so school's going good? All the answers.
all kinds of technical difficulties. All right, I'm sorry. My slideshow just kicked out of my slideshow. I'm trying to find that place I just left off. And I've been a mess. All right, that's good. Good to hear. Jay says my mic's fixed, so let me find my spot back in here. We'll probably go back one. All right. We're loading it up now. Should be popping up. We're back at this rendering of the site in Louisiana. Like I was saying, it's they call them mounds, but they're like bases to pyramids. Right? They're huge, sophisticated living cities. They've created the landscape you see completely. The monumental earthworks of Poverty Point is a publicly owned and managed archaeological park in the parish of West Carroll State in Louisiana, United States of America. The site is located on the eastern edge of the elevated landform Macron Ridge in the lower Mississippi Valley. Today, the ridge, which is about 7 to 9 meters higher than the adjacent lowlands. So Poverty Point is 2 to 3,000 BCE. It's another huge complex, and I threw this guy in here because they say it's publicly owned, but it's another UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay. And this is Chakhoa Mound Complex. And this is a modern picture of what's left. You can see these rows, these arches in here. It looks like it's just grass cut differently, but these are earth mounds. This whole complex is the earthworks. This is what it looked like. Had multiple mounds. This place also could have held 20 to 50,000 people. Huge place. We have Monk's Mound in here. Sorry, it's jumping now. And the base is larger. At this place, the base is larger than the pyramid, the largest pyramid of Giza. Basically, the point is, you think one of the wonders of the world is the pyramids in Egypt. We have had pyramids here in America, United States, longer. These are just a few of the artifacts that they found. And if you see, there's inscriptions, right? And petroglyphs. These amazingly huge cities all over our country. They're found Louisiana, Mississippi, Virginia, Ohio, all the way out to Midwest, Oklahoma. When just in this show, I'm just trying to stay in the United States to prove a point that this is the old land. This is the original world. It didn't start over there and we came over here. The out of Africa theory is just a theory. It's in reverse. And these are petroglyphs, all right? Along with these huge cities that rival ancient Egypt, because we are ancient Egypt. There's been countless reports of petroglyphs and hieroglyphs found all over the United States. Right? And sorry. This is the Chaco Mound State Historical Site. It's the site of pre-Columbian Native American city directly across from the Mississippi River from modern St. Louis, Missouri. This historic park lies in southwest Illinois between East St. Louis and Collinsville, about 4 square miles in size. Just huge complex. And this is what it would have looked like. They have their Serpent River in the back. They've completely created all of this landscape. All of this was built. Bigger than the pyramids in Egypt. This is, they called the culture the Mississippian and related cultures, people who lived in here, the ancient people. They're called the Middle Mississippian. You have your South Appalachian Mississippian. Map. And you can see their ranges and of all these mounds and cities and places they've built range from Canada by the Great Lakes all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. And while I digging into this, I would keep finding authors who would write about their findings and these petroglyphs and these huge cities. And each time I'd find a new author or a new book, and I've been ordering them. I have just this. I want to hold it. I want to read it. You know, I just don't want to take somebody else's word for it or another article. So I've been basically reading 5 books at a time, basically on this subject that talk about this, and that there's tons of information and articles in archives and reports. These places, like these things, were hidden. They're reported on and then swooped in by the Smithsonian or the World Heritage Site, also the Bureau of Land Management. Okay. And I've been reading this book by an author, and I really like this author. His name's Barry Fell, and this picture I have up is from the book American BC. Middle of reading that one. It's where a lot of information I had got, like this article. But this article hit me because this guy, it's right around the corner from where I work, and I'm in Vermont. And this is right in the neighborhood where I work. I drive to work about an hour, and this is this is 2 generations ago. Edward Reed was plowing his property near White River, Vermont, when the earth gave way beneath him, and he discovered an underground passage. And leading into the chamber, here John Williams examines the interior, deeply inscribed letters and buried initials, intently lettered, disclosed that the chamber is a small temple dedicated to the sun god Baal. That's Vermont. Ancient times. I mean, this is so close to my home. This is right around the corner from a gorge that was carved out from the last ice age, and that's called the Coetzee Gorge. And this guy talks about how these petroglyphs or Ogham inscriptions, carvings, and talk about Celts living in this area before the gorge was there, and how they found inscriptions and carvings in this gorge. This is the cover to the book, American BC, Ancient Settlers in the New World by Barry Fell. He's a professor. He's has a doctorate from Harvard, even though he's been laughed at by our mainstream academia. But there's so much information about how many things have been found, how many reports of petroglyphs, and stone carvings, writings, which I'll get into a lot deeper, but and he's writing these things and trying to prove that there's pre-Columbian history, but he's still in out of Africa, right to left theory. He's seeing it backwards, and a lot of the information I got coming up, and I'm going to be presenting just in this. It's from the first chapter in this, The American Enigma and Its Solutions. Talks about the centuries of independence, 200 years of national awareness, the underlining times, and finding these things that I'm talking about. Okay. And this is another book that I'm also reading at the same time that has great information. It talks about these mounds, but yet too, this is from a newer civilization. But they point out a lot of these places that just get hidden, and they'll lead you in other places to find archived articles about the Smithsonian being there, or gutting out these mounds. Okay. So petroglyphs, and they tell you this is their definition. Petroglyphs are more than just rock art. Okay, they tell you it's rock art, or picture writing, or imitation of the natural world. And they tell you they shouldn't be confused with hieroglyphs, because hieroglyphs were shapes that would represent words. But it's not just graffiti, and it's not art. Anytime they tell you it's in the name of art, it's a joke. Sorry. But petroglyphs are pretty much found in, in every single state, including the little town I live in Vermont, right down the river from the place I was just talking about with the small underground temple to Baal. So started digging in. I found places that had a certain name to me. So started looking into the Mexican hairless. And I'll get to this. I'll confusing of how I just jumped into the Mexican hairless dog. But so if you literally search the Mexican hairless dog, you get Xoloitzcuintli is the actual name, right? That's what the dog's breed is. They say it's from two words, the language of the Aztecs. Xotl, the god of lightning and death. So this breed is named after that. You can also call it the hairless Nubius. Okay? It's the same thing, right? Or if you know Egyptian, this is Nubius. Anubius, also called Anpu, ancient Egyptian god of the dead. They say it's a jackal. Looks a lot more like the Mexican hairless Xolo. And they showed figure of a man with the head of a jackal in the early dynastic period, in the Old Kingdom. He enjoyed a preeminent, through not exclusive, position as Lord of the Dead, but he was later overshadowed by Osiris. He was also the god of embalming. Yeah. And that's the Aztecs on the left version. And that's Anubis on the right, Egyptian, ancient Egyptian version. Again, this is pulled from that book and other articles it led me to. It says, of the various kinds of dogs living among the indigenous people, Jolo was special. Missing teeth and a white higher than normal temperature with a higher than normal temperature. This dog was not considered a breed at the time, but rather an abnormality. It could be born in the same litter as regular dogs. It's a mutation and it's heterogenetic gene. All right, it was made. This dog's 5,000 to 7,000 years old. Right, we talk about how dogs come from wolves, but this is a special dog, hairless dog. And they call him Zolo. He has an association with the underworld, like Anubius. He was the god Xotl. His twin brother, Quetzalcoatl. While Xotl symbolized the planet Venus as the evening star, Quetzalcoatl was Venus as the morning star. Together, they exemplified the harmony of opposites. Right? Does that all sound familiar? Right? Like you think about it in alchemy sense, right? Yin yang, feminine, masculine, right? Opposites attract. And they say this was a central Aztec thinking. Dogs were animals that were used in sacrifices to the gods then. They were eaten as an ordinary food, but as a ritual food. The spirit of the dog had the task of transporting the master's spirit to the underworld after death. So Quetzalcoatl's twin brother, Jolo, was sacrificed when you died because he was the one to carry you across the river, swim across the river, carry you to the underworld. The dog was also linked in the ritual calendar. And we've talked a lot about calendars lately. The sky and the sun's fire, the feast of the god of fire, is held on a three dog of the ritual calendar. Sorry. In certain sacrificial rites, a dog was substituted for a human being as a victim. And it was Xotl because he was the god of the underworld, Anubis, right? This is after reading it, I wanted to check the book, check the information from these articles, right? I get the same thing from Wikipedia, the Aztec Day. Right? Dogs have occupied a powerful place in Mesoamerica folklore. Right? It says here that's been around, this dog has been around for 3,500 years. It's even older than that. Sacrifice, buried with the owners, as a guide to the soul to the journey of the underworld. He is the Venus, the evening star, twin brother to the morning star, Quetzalcoatl. This is ancient. In Americas, right? And when I was digging that up, it's funny, I find Hermanubis, right? That's Hermes, Egyptian Thoth, right? Hermes and Thoth is the same thing. Now they're mixing them with Anubis to make Hermanubis, ancient Greek. Hermanubis is a Greco-Egyptian god who conducts the souls of the dead to the underworld. So just link Greek, ancient Greek, Egyptian, to Quetzalcoatl in South America. But how's this tie into everything I've said so far? Right? Here's Hermanubis in the November panel of the Roman Masonic calendar from South Sea, Tunisia, Anyways, I threw that in there because we've been talking about the calendars, and I mentioned how it's not 12 months. They've changed it. And here's Hermanubis. Okay. So we're discussing in these scriptures, in these petroglyphs, right? These things have turned out to have actual Punic, Iberic, Celtic, and Liberian languages from New England to California. And this is a picture of a cave in Oklahoma. It's called the Anubis Cave. So before Aztecs were having a hairless dog that represented Anubis or Zolo, was already in America. Right? I know this picture is hard to see, right? But this is a petroglyph, a hieroglyph. This is and it lines up with the solstice. So at a certain time of the year when the sun comes through this cave right here in the middle, you got this like a pillar. The sun shines through it. In a way, it tells the story across these petroglyphs. And I have an arrow pointing here. There's a carving of a man. Right? This is the sun god. And he has rays coming out of his head. Right? And then along the natural crack in the stone, they have carved a sun, right, going down over the horizon. It's hard to see here, but to the right of that, right, up here where this black arrow is pointing, we have a carving of a dog, of Anubis, of Zorro. Right? He's the sun god carrying souls to the underworld. Right? And the whole time that during the solstice, the sun is going down, a shadow is coming up through that pillar, and it's the sun going up the man. So when the sun is exactly on the opposite mountain of this cave shining through it, the head of the man is on the shadow, like it's going under the horizon, and the shadow line of the shadow goes directly under the sun. So when the actual sun is in line with the horizon in view of this cave, it's casting a shadow, making it look like the sun they carved is going under the horizon of the shadow with the sun god. And the whole time, the Anubis, Zolo, carrying souls to the underworld, is still lit up. Like it's telling the story. The shadows going down and casting the shadows, still illuminating the dog, is telling the story of the sun god going, the evening star going down, and the dog carrying the souls behind him to the underworld. In Oklahoma, right? Anubis, an Anapu, the ancient god of the dead. Yeah. Egyptian Anubis. The figure is a carving in ancient Egypt. And the one on the right is the Anubis cave in Oklahoma. Anubis, Zolo, United States. Right? Like I said, it's a little outlined here. You can see the man I was talking about. Right? He's got the sun rays and Anubis on the right. And this is Barry Fell, a professor from Harvard. And he's still going on with these books. These books are brilliant, and I love them. I tell you, go find Barry Fell. Go find his books, read them. I can't stop reading them, but he's still out of Africa, dairy, And here, like I said, the picture on the left is the view from inside the cave out, watching the actual sun going down. Right? The cave wall silhouette producing the face shadow that falls on the indicator in Anubis cave. and equinox nose pointer. So the little rock on that little cave, that crack in that pillar that lets the sunlight through, they use it as a pointer. So the shadow of it is pointing across the story of the way the shadow falls of the sun god, the evening star, in the Anubis cave in Oklahoma. These weren't Egyptians from over in Egypt that became mariners and miners, right? They weren't seafaring miners that would go travel on the sea and then find a river in the Gulf of Mexico and then go up it till they found another river and then decided to get out of the river and go hike across Oklahoma. And then sophisticated created this Anubis cave that works with the equinox and tells you a complete story. Right? And in this, right, the picture of the man I pointed out, you can see the carving of the box, right? And around that box, there was these tally marks. They're called, some will say it's Ogum. And there's a lot of Ogum. Ogum is, they'll say it's Celt, but it's Arabic. These are Arabic writings, right? And Libyan came from Arabic. It's a writing on the Anubis panel. They call it the Anubis panel in the Anubis cave in Oklahoma. Right? So when they translate this from Arabic into English, it says, enact at sunset the rites of Bel, assembling at the hour in worship. So, these scratches and carvings that they say were just nothing or petroglyphs actually tells you, it's telling a story of the evening star, the sun god, right? And Anubis. Because the sun god is Bel. And they're assembling there in this cave at that equinox, at the hour in which to worship. So to get into, I've said Ogum a few times, and you're gonna, you find a lot of Ogum carving. It's the secret language of the Druids. It takes what can be one of the most complex ancient languages. Uh, this solidly researched guide to Ogum, the traditional alphabet of the Irish poets and lore masters, belong on the bookshelves anyone interested in Celtic traditions and modern Druid spirituality. This guy, Ellison, deserves high praise for a readable and practical introduction to the intricacies of Ogham lore. Uh, like again, here, this is mainstream, but it's a Druid's language, Ogham. Um, the Ogham language is seen as the first written language in Ireland, but they found it all over the United States, all over the place. Um, the, the last clipping I had from the book that said that they found, petroglyphs and hieroglyphs from New England to California, and a lot of it is Ogham. But there's more Ogham in the United States than there is in Ireland, so they're just going along with how it's the ancient or the first written language of Ireland because it's right to left, from over there to over here. We're the ancient world. The United States is. And they say the early evidence was from the 4th century. Evidence of the Roman script in Irish literature dates back to the 7th century, which I just proved is wrong. It's an early medieval alphabet, but the Druids. Now the Druids were the magical priests of the Phoenicians, and as I started to look at starting in the United States as the original world, and going, not from right to left and the out of Africa theory, but out of United States, out of here, from left to right. Um, I started looking at the Phoenicians different, right? And I realized I'm starting to see and finding proof that the Phoenicians weren't they weren't a people or a nation or a type of people from one specific place. Um, Phoenicians and the Punic and the phonetic languages, it's all the same, and it's all from um, Phoenicians really meant a group of it's the first secret society.
It's like a
They were
cult.
right. They weren't a people that came from a land. They were a gathering of multiple peoples, and these peoples came from the original world, right? And they were mariners. They were seafarers, right? And so they created Ogum that was easy to teach all over wherever they sailed, right? So they could do business more efficiently. And here's a few different versions of the same Ogum. Um, just they say that there's different versions, like from what they found here in Ireland compared to Scotland, but it's all Ogum, and it all originates from the same place. And they'll tell you, along with the Irish, the ancient Irish language thing, is how it's like tally marks, and they go upwards from bottom to top, up like a pillar, right? And I pointed out here, this just looked like tally marks, but it made me think, using the word tally to, tally marks to show you or verbally express what it is, made me realize how funny it is they teach us, young tally marks, because they're basically making us make fun of Ogum, you know.
I seen those on the Curse of Oak Island on some stuff.
Right, and and when I was like that picture, this one I have, um, the Vermont parts, the articles I find about Vermont really fascinating because I've always just felt like there was more to this silly little country hillbilly town state. Everywhere I go, I hike in the woods for 2 miles and find foundations or these stone walls that the old farmers used to build to keep their cows in. I'm like, you know I've been actually coming to this conclusion or this theory and wanting to research it for a long time because I've been looking at um, mountain faces and these rolling hills in Vermont and looking at them like they're I'm not looking at something natural. It's not a natural occurring thing. And being on the river, I got into kayaking, and I kayaked really close to some of these railroad beds. And get back to the point of this. Um, Along the railroad, they had these granite posts that would hold signs. And I remember even when my father was a conductor or an engineer on a steam train, I was a little kid riding along the rails along the same river I kayaked. And I remember seeing them with these signs. It would have a W on it and tell the conductor or the engineer to blow the whistle. Um, and these granite posts just seemed old. And there was these scratches that looked like sideways tally marks up the sides of them. And, I remember seeing them when I was little and asking my dad what the W meant. He said, whistle, pull the whistle. And when they were filling in along riverbeds or along river for the railroad beds, they were filling in with these old stones, a lot of places. And I remember re-seeing these stones and thinking, wow, those have scratches up them. I remember those. Those are the same things that had the whistle signs. It's just repurposed, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Is that you can find these things if you go out in nature or look. This is supposed to be just a rock, and they say this is some site or whatever, but it actually has Ogrum on it. And like you said, there's like right up to the Oak Island. Um, I think the whole, like up there, they had the whole Norse and the Viking pre-Columbia
Yep.
storyline, which I believe is also another storyline to keep you thinking right to left. You know, people came from over there to here. Um, they're not right. So back in Oklahoma, along here's another petroglyph. This man's holding two spears, an inscription um, on a river in Oklahoma. Um, this script appears to be bilingual, with bottom line being Nunam Nundian, and it's copied from the Epigraph Society occasional papers. Okay, it's just another. There's these places like in the 1800s, early mid, kind of late 1800s. A lot of people were you have to find them in archives, buried in archives. But there's like science magazines and um, like students from colleges that would find these things or do their own investigations and archaeological sites in America, and they would and publish some of their findings. And um, the Epigraphic Society is one of the places they have papers. This is from the book from Barry Fell, um, and I've been finding myself refining information. So, you know, I want to hold the book in my hand, and I want to, you know, collaborate with the information I'm hearing or whatever. Um, you know, in the book, he'll mention the Epigraphic Society, and then I'll read into the Epigraphic Society, and they'll mention Barry Fell and back and forth. But um, this too, you know, this is as old as the Anubis Cave, if not older. Um, has two different languages on it. They'll tell you it's just petroglyphs, artistic rendering, but it's Ogham or Arabic. Um, like I said, in my town, down on the river in the falls, there's petroglyphs of um, just the man's head. And it almost looks exactly like this one on this guy, but they have like either horns or antennas. Um, Maybe I'll dig up pictures and talk about them more. But so in this same place on this river in Oklahoma, in the Panhandle, this is a horse. This is beautifully carved horse, and on its shoulder it reads "swift-footed." All right, that's according to Fell. They, you know, people will say that Barry Fell was, you know, he's crazy, and he discredited him, even though he was got his doctrine from Harvard. Um, but the I found other articles saying that this horse, yeah, it's definitely saying swift-footed, and that it's unfinished. The legs are not there. But then there's places like I can't think exactly where it was. No, I don't want to say Italy or Ireland, but it was over there somewhere that had almost the exact same thing, but the legs were finished and the rest of the horse wasn't there. Like they're almost together at one point and they're across the globe. And again, I showed you this map, right? From the Great Lakes all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, um, all the way in Alaska. All right, this map here is specifically shows you this is the promised land. Right? The out of Africa migration, it was not. It was out of here.
Yeah, I get behind that.
And I mentioned how they like this map. It says it's the Mississippian, right? I'll tell you, it's these Mississippian cultures. And they were, um, you know, influenced by Egyptian mining mariners or Druids, the Phoenicians, or the Celts, long before the Vikings came. But like I said, they literally would have had to sail across the ocean, find the Gulf of Mexico, find the Mississippi River, and then find their, you know, Arkansas River or Ohio River. It's just it's a hard pill for me to swallow. It's easier for me to believe that uh, it's inverted reality, the inverted truth. You know, like the video Jay made about the audience hall, right? And the the rendition of what is it? Jesus coming out of an
Oh,
atomic explosion, right?
yeah,
Right.
that's what they say. Yeah.
Spent some time inverting that, right? And you were seeing a true reality when he would take half the picture and invert it, right? It's like I've never played the Warcraft. It's called.
Yeah.
Um, but I was reading this thing about how this they have a map of these two continents of the world, right, in this make believe game. But if you take the right continent and invert it and lay it over the west coast of the United States, it lines up perfectly. Basically saying what we're taught, what we cannot uncomprehend of migrating from Africa into Egypt and up and around is wrong. That's the inverted falsity to our reality. Okay, like like Arabic writing. If you write Arabic, right, we read these Arabic, Hebrew, uh, even in these things come from so-called Egyptian hieroglyphs. You read right to left, right? So if you write with your hand, if you can write Arabic right to left like you read it, and then you finish it, right? You flip it over, so right becomes left. That is Latin, literally. It's not. It looks like Latin. That is where Latin written language came from. It's inverted Arabic, right?
Well, what better way to hide, the truth, and I think what people are going to start to learn is that, if you can't trust history and you can't trust the governments, then why would you ever trust the maps?
Exactly. I mean, when you feel like if you've had enough of being fed the truth, our history, right? You start relying on your own ability to find your own history or research it or investigate it. And you start seeing these discrepancies or these agencies like UNESCO or Smithsonian or the Bureau of Land Management. They come up a lot when you find these things that are just, fakes. Somebody fake carved a Punic language before the Punic language was even translated from Libyan in the 70s, right? People were writing about this language they found that somebody said it might have been Ogham that, carved by obviously some Native Americans that were influenced by some Celts. It's sorry, you know, it's inverted. The reality you will know of, whether you look at the map of the world, the country, or the layout of your town, it's an inversion of reality. All right. So uh, they call this Native American civilization the Mississippian. Right? Um, they're Egyptian. We are ancient Egypt. We're even older than that. Right? Call us Egyptian is modern compared to actually how old it is. Right? So, reading about them is how they will feed us another dose of inverted reality, the Mississippians. So I looked at the word Mississippi again, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been looking at this word this whole time, starting with the Grand Canyon, starting going into Anubis, is Zolo, is Zolo is the twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, is Anubis in the cave, is the Anubis inscriptions in Oklahoma. Right? What word is in Mississippi?
ISIS.
100%.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to call them Mississippians,
It's like Miss
right?
ISIS. Yeah.
Right? Like so, and right near the Isis temple in the forbidden zone of the Grand Canyon is that G.E. Kincaid Egyptian city, and I finding these things, I started. I believe more a lot of these things were uh, taken over there and then presented back to you as found over there. Um, when you think how how can they have, you know, maybe have faked, um, maybe it is the pyramids. I don't want to go say as far as the pyramids are even, you know, an application to this falsity, but maybe an ancient people that migrated from the true old world uh, constructed those, but maybe along the way of, you know, multiple history resets, the things that came from the actual old world were brought over there, if not hidden in the Smithsonian, were brought over there purposely to be presented to people. Um, you know, they speak of the Grand Canyon, or excuse me, the Great Pyramids had another layer of stone on them, and then that was taken off. But then you hear, you know, I read articles about how a powerful king wanted to destroy them, but put a hole in one of them and discovered it was going to cost more than it would have to make them. I'm like, so that doesn't make sense. But you think of these huge blocks. They must have had millions of slaves, millions, and huge animals to help them rolling these huge blocks. But there's a thing called geopolymer granite. Right? It's a mixture: crushed limestone, clay, water, and lime. It's a geopolymer granite concrete, limestone concrete. Limestone turns into granite. Granite is limestone. All these petroglyphs, all these carvings, including your hieroglyphs of where these Punic, Lemurian, Phoenician languages come from, Egyptian hieroglyphs. Right? So they could have these what look like stones stacked on top of each other in pyramid in Giza could just be a geopolymer limestone concrete mixture.
Yeah.
Right? Um,
And we used to have
and
pyramids
then
here. They destroyed them.
oh, I pointed out a lot while you were
Oh yeah,
on.
sorry about that.
No, no, that's fine. Yes, and you're making a great point. There's still lots of them, um, hundreds and thousands of them, and they were like I was pointing out some of the ones that I got from this book about the dark skin path of America by an actual uh, Native American and Indian, um, talking about his ancestors, you know, building these things. Well, you know, they his ancestors that, you know, the Native Americans came from were descendants from the original people who made these things, and they just continued to build on top of them. You know, um, here in in the UK. Well, this goes along with the geopolymer concrete I was just talking about. Okay, so um, you can take, you know, we do the same thing with bricks and cinder blocks, right? And then we'll put, what do they call it, spackle? We call it spackle,
Yeah.
or
Um.
mortar, whatever. So basically, you make a concrete mixture, makes a block. You build with the block, and then you put a spackle or
Stucco, it's called.
stucco,
Yeah, that's it.
stucco over it, right? So
Yeah.
the elements like wind and water won't break down your limestone concrete mixture. And over in the UK, they call it render. It's literally like gives you a look. Here you go, plaster the brick and stone surfaces.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that over there they have the same fake history we do by the same controllers, the same people that we point out, um, and they call it render. And to us, render, a rendition. You make it something differently, and that's literally what um, the definition of render is. And the definition of something you put over a stone to actually hide what it's actually made out of.
Right, we do that here all the time. They just call it faux finish, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's really called render.
Yeah.
They had us give it a different name when you're rendering a different. So the point of that is they didn't have ancient technologies that could laser cut 40 billion pound stones out for 40,000 people to carry. They made a geopolymer limestone block, and then a bunch of them grabbed their dowels, or not their dowels, but their trowels, and rendered up a wall on it.
That makes a lot
Now,
more
I'm not
sense.
to me it does too. I'm not saying that's exactly how they did it, because it would still, you could combat that theory with what about the full obelisks that are still being carved out of the solid ground, Okay, true. So maybe not all applications, maybe they still did carve, maybe they had a different uh, uh, understanding of how to carve these stones. Maybe what we see is the whole casting. Like if they were pouring a cement floor from a truck, and maybe there was like a casting for a sink in the middle or something. But that it just makes you think about in a different way than just traditionally elephants and slaves pulling tons and tons of stones. And it makes you have to go back and look. When I look at these things, like the Isis temple in the forbidden part of Grand Canyon, where the supposed Egyptian cave. Uh, this is the Isis temple. When you look, all right, think of like the Sphinx, the big paws coming out. Right, here's the perfect cutout of the two paws in front of it. This would have come up here, and what looks like the capstone to a pyramid on this Isis temple would be more about where the Sphinx or Nubis head would be. Um, these walls measure out to be like perfect 90-degree cuttings. They're almost cutting. Like, I'm not saying they made the whole Grand Canyon, but why is the Bureau of Land Management working with Smithsonian Institution and the UNESCO World Heritage Sites to call these places all kinds of Egyptian places, names? It's all over. Pre-Columbia, and the whole pre-Columbia uh, is theory with like the transoceanic traveling was all part of the out of Africa through Egypt up to Greece, and it's inverted, it's backwards, and that's basically what I have for right now for this show. But we'll definitely be diving into a lot more of this on a deeper aspect, and more artifacts and more of these physical places.
Yeah, man. Sorry about for a little while there at the beginning. We didn't have much sound. You didn't have any sound, and I was trying to sort it out, but my daughter was calling me, so I was like,
Yeah,
it
and
was
I
a tricky
I didn't
position.
realize that I wasn't having sound until I saw here on the chat. then you text me, and I'm like, I'm just gonna try to keep going. But I mean, we can go back. I mean, maybe I'll get repetitive on this show in the next one, um, because finding Anubis all over America and his connection to Quetzalcoatl really brought it to what you have been saying about it too. Tied it in.
Yeah.
So if that none of that made it, I'll probably have to go back and watch to see how much I should repeat for you and everybody else too. Um, but I mean, once I started digging and trying to find all these resources that other people's were talking about and get my hands on physical copies, it's just been one thing after another, and I trying not to just stop, but I literally have to make myself put a couple books down. I can't read more than 3 or 4 at a time, and they're all giving great information on you know trying to prove or show um, that we're the old world. And all the stories that've been told, and you try to track it from right to left, you're going to be confused and lost because we're the promised land. It's here.
This is God's country.
Absolutely. What is that? Is it Land's End that says that? Big advertisement. I think it is one of those places that say that. But um, like I was saying a minute ago about the Phoenicians, right? I was reading an article about how um, they're a secret society, and they're a secret society of mariners that created um, language that was easy to teach to people to make it easier for merchant trading. Um, and the Druids were the magical priests in the Phoenicians. But you didn't get to become a captain in this secret society. You didn't become a captain and get your own boat and get to go do your own uh, maritime adventures or merchant finding riches or whatever. You didn't get up in this secret society and get your own captain, your own huge vessel, and your own crew, right, until you went through the initiate and you worked your way up the ranks. And the very top rank in this Phoenician secret order of mariners was called the Q.
Oh, go
That was the name.
figure.
That was the rank's name, the Q. And they called it, you were receiving the eye of the needle. You were getting the thread through the eye of a needle. So when the thread's going through the eye of a needle, it looks like
The
a Q.
Q. Yeah.
And
Oh man.
and there, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Man.
Um, yeah. So, and I'll probably get into more of that. I've mentioned in past shows about how, trying to break down some of the heraldry and that anything purple was Phoenician, and that's still true. Um, I'll have to dig back into the article I was reading, but it talks about how there was another civilization that they pretty much took over or whatever. They learned the purple, and there was truths and traces of purple being initially making purple to us now is a color, but it was an actual textile. Like the fez hats. What we know now as Shriners with fez hats were more Arabic people that came from God's country who became Phoenician. And they wound up having their fez hats or their turbans um, be a purple textile. And they were known for that. And that is exactly where the Shriners came from. And that's how they got theirs. It's a little bit of a joke in our faces um, that it was like, Arabic, the, a lot of the headdress from the ancient world and where Arabic peoples and came from. And it's here. So, um, but anyways, I'll uh, I'll go through and re-present what I did at the beginning of the show, and then incorporate it into adding more information for the next time. But we will be going into depth more on this topic.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll get that video done that I was telling you about, because that'll go
Yeah,
hand in hand with this stuff.
perfect.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that and seeing how much it does go in hand in hand. How much of it I already probably trying to put into a new show, next show. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, man.
quick question before we go: Do you have you heard of the Coptic?
The what?
The Coptic, like Egyptian Coptics?
Coptics?
Yeah, Coptic.
I don't know. What is that?
Um, they are an ancient, like the ancient Egyptians version of Christianity. They were a church. They believed in the Trinity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I have not heard of that.
So like, uh, yeah, I was gonna bring more of that up. So we'll get into that next show. So I'll go back into this show and see how much no sound of my presentation was in there.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry.
I
I
had two.
mean,
I had two outputs. That was the problem. Is I had two outputs up there, and they were on different settings. So once I deleted one of them, then your sound came on. I was like, oh, okay, good.
all right. Well, at least you know the mic's working over here. I have it turned all the way up, so I'll just leave it there from now on. But either way, it'll give me a good jump start for the next show, and then we'll come up with something. Maybe the Coptic religion of the Egypts, and jump off from there. So, well, it's good to see you, Jay.
Yeah, you too,
Everybody
buddy.
out there who put up with us today. God
Yeah,
bless you all,
yeah,
and
buddy.
stay vigilant.
You too, man. Thank you. Appreciate your show. See ya. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry about the technical difficulties. That was definitely my fault on my end. So, um, but we will represent the stuff that was missed. And keep your eyes open because I'm going to be putting out a video of Moses' last walk through the United States. So keep your eyes out for that. I hope you all take care of yourselves and God bless.